Let's get this sports podcast party started, all right?
The JAYREELZ podcast.
What is happening, my good people? Greetings. How are you? How's it going? How's everybody doing out there? What is the latest and greatest? Hope everybody's doing well, feeling fantastic, in excellent spirits. Countdown to Christmas and New Year's as 2025 is starting to wind down, but there's no countdown needed with the latest podcast coming at you now, as this is the JAYREELZ podcast with JAYREELZ. For my first timers, welcome aboard, and for those who've been banging with me going back to the very beginning, somewhere in the middle, or even as early as this past Monday, I welcome you guys and gals back. And now as we get even closer, as I mentioned, to the holiday season, where, like I said, 7 days from Christmas and then 14 days from a new year. But right now, we're looking forward to not only what's happening in the NFL, but college football, because we have a playoff tomorrow night. But tonight, the NFL has one of its biggest games here over the last 3 weeks, and that's up in the Pacific Northwest between the Seahawks and Rams. And I'm going to start there because when we look at these two teams, and we know that earlier this year where the Rams won at SoFi against the Seahawks, where Sam Darnold had an awful game, 4 interceptions, and it made you even wonder whether or not he can provide not only his teammates, his team, but also to himself, a big-time effort, a big-time performance against a team that obviously is going to be battling it out for the NFC West and even a 1 seed in the NFC overall. And how I look at this matchup tonight, it's a short week. We know that the Rams are not going to have Devontae Adams, or at least so we think. I'm sure it's a game-time decision, but he had that hamstring injury that he suffered there on Sunday against the Lions, and I don't think he's going to be ready to play tonight. And Puka Nacua, although he's cleared to play, but he's had a multitude of injuries here over pretty much the first, 3 years of his career. But he did get his bell rung late in that game on Sunday to where you wonder whether or not he's going to be 100% and ready to go. But to me, this game is more about Seattle than it is the Rams, because we know that the Rams have had a pedigree here under their head coach Sean McVay and even the quarterback Matt Stafford, who right now could be the leading candidate for MVP of the league. But if you're a Seahawks fan, I know this is a game that right now you have to be salivating, knowing that if you win this game, you'll control your own destiny to get not only a division crown, but more importantly, a 1 seed and a bye in the NFC playoffs. But even for the quarterback, as I mentioned, because we have not seen Sam Darnold in big spots deliver a huge win for a team, and in this case for a Seattle team, because last year, if you remember, when he was a Viking quarterback, he led his team to the final game of the season against the Detroit Lions on that Sunday night, which would have been for not only the division, but for a 1 seed. And what happened? Did not play well in the game. And as a wild card team, having to go to Los Angeles, well, in this case, Arizona, because of the fires there in the Pacific Palisades, and over near Calabasas, where the Rams thwarted the Viking and Sam Darnold-led team to where they only put up 9 points, had, I believe, 3 interceptions in the game, and literally just petered out after a big first 16 games. So in the last 2 games, it just went up in smoke. So now Darnold has a lot to prove here in this spot. Does it mean if he goes out and wins the game, or let's say if he has a bad game, but somehow the Seahawks win, that all will be forgotten? Absolutely not. But I think for him, he is the one guy that a lot of people are going to look at tonight to see whether or not he's going to be able to stand and deliver his team to victory. And generally, when you look at these short weeks, the home team has the advantage. And even with the potential injuries that are on the Ram offensive side of the ball, I would think that that is going to be a huge boost for a Seahawks team to try to get at Matthew Stafford, to try to get him off of his rhythm, and even try to just attack him as much as they possibly can, because you all know that Stafford is not a guy that's mobile. He's not a guy that's going to be escaping the pocket and try to make plays with his legs. So if I'm the Seahawks, of course, the plan of attack is just to get to Stafford. But we all know in his, 17th year in the league, he's very crafty. He's a guy that has really blossomed into a Hall of Fame quarterback, considering that his first part of his football journey in Detroit, it did not blossom, or even no one even thought that he was going to be a Hall of Fame quarterback, despite the fact that he was putting up numbers here year in and year out. And of course, he did have Calvin Johnson. But now that he's been here in LA for about the past 5 years or so, he has certainly carved a path to where he's going to go to Canton pretty much on roller skates. And how I look at it, for him to go into Seattle, we all know the 12th man, and that's going to be a hostile environment. That's not going to faze him because he has seen everything that has transpired throughout his long career. But I think tonight, again, do I trust Darnold? I could see this being a close game. I could see it being whomever has the ball last. I can see the Seahawks winning, but my gut is telling me that the Rams are going to find a way to win this game. Because with Sean McVay, I'm sure he's going to dial up a plan or two that maybe the Seahawks haven't seen, considering that he's going to be compromised there on the offensive side of the ball. And I think that they will certainly find a way. Now, unless Stafford's going to have one of those games that he had a few weeks ago in Carolina where he's going to turn the ball over, he's not going to be efficient throwing, and obviously the disruption by the Seattle defense maybe will be a cause of that. So unless you're going to tell me that, then I'm going to think the Seahawks are going to win. And I would think the Seahawks are probably going to have to win more on the defensive side of the ball than they would offensively because, again, Darnold is a guy that you can't really trust. And he's going to have to show the world here on the stage where it's the only game being shown, as we all know, on Amazon Prime. So from a fan's perspective, I think that if Darnold, big game or not, now they're going to expect a big game considering what he's done throughout the course of the year. I don't know if he's going to have that in him. I really don't. To me, it's going to be more of a thing where the defense is going to have to rise to the occasion. And on top of all that, Darnold obviously is going to have to make some plays. But I think the Rams will find a way to win a 26-24 type game. And if it is 26-24, that means Darnold has his fingerprints all over this game. Because even the game earlier at SoFi was 21-19, but with all the turnovers and they got a late touchdown to at least make it look cosmetically a little bit closer. But obviously they're going to need a lot more from him in order for the Seahawks to get to where they want to go, which for them is to get that 1 seed, win a division, and that's all she wrote. But here's what's interesting about the Seahawks game from their perspective as far as them being victorious tonight. It does bring the Niners into play here, and for this reason only. Because the Niners, who are lurking there at 10-4, just a game behind both the Rams and Seahawks, if the Rams win, they'll have the tiebreaker over Seattle, and chances are they're going to win the division and probably have the 1 seed in their back pocket. But if the Seahawks win, that's where the Niners are in play, because the Niners, if they run the table, and I know that their schedule here is a little tricky. They got to go to Indianapolis. I understand Phillip Rivers, but not going to be an easy game. Then they have the Bears going to San Francisco next week, followed by Seattle going into their building there in Week 18. So if Seattle wins tonight and they could puff out their chest and they could break out the pom-poms and be like, hey, we beat the Rams. Hey, we're right now in first place all by our lonesome. Yes, we control our own destiny. Yes, we can have the 1 seed, etc. But if San Francisco somehow, some way wins the next 2 games, going into that final game at Levi Stadium, San Francisco will have control of their own destiny. And as it is, and it's a big if they win the next 3, they're in. They'll win a division. Chances are they'll have a 1 seed, we would think, and all will be sitting pretty for Kyle Shanahan and company. So that's how you got to look at it. Now, as far as the Rams winning tonight, as we know, I just laid it out. And the Rams' final couple of games ago, I believe Arizona goes to them, which that's going to be a win. So that's why the 49ers aren't going to be able to win a division, because Arizona, they're just going to lay down. Even if the Rams have clinched everything, we would think that the Cardinals are not going to show up there on that last game. They're going to probably tank at that point to try to see if they can get a quarterback, because who knows what the future of Kyler Murray is going to be there in Arizona. So a lot of permutations with this game tonight. So it's not even just Seahawks-Rams. Also, the Niners factor into that, and especially if Seattle wins, because that's where the Niners actually have a shot to swoop in and not only win a division, but get a 1 seed. But of course, they got to take care of business in Indianapolis and at home against the Bears in order for them to do that. So something to keep in mind as we get down through the stretch of the season. But I think the Rams will win a close game tonight, and it's a great way to start off a Week 16. And then you have the Saturday games that come into play, where with college football, and we'll get to that in a second, you have the college football playoff on Saturday where you have 3 games, but the 2 games where in the afternoon and the evening, 5 o'clock, Philadelphia at Washington. All right, if Philly wins, they're going to win the division. But Washington, they're already out to sea, so that's not a game that's going to be on anybody's radar in my eyes. But the nightcap, you're going to have the Packers going to Chicago to play the Bears, which pretty much could be for the 2 seed. And maybe a 1 seed when it's all said and done. But right now, when you're looking at these division foes, the Packers, who beat the Bears just not even 2 weeks ago, this will be the second time they'll play over a 3-week, or really a 2-week span, but second time in 3 games when you look at the schedule. And how I look at this game, to me, this is going to be all on the shoulders of Caleb Williams. Whether or not Caleb Williams is going to be able to deliver this type of game in his building to wrestle away the division from the Packers. Because right now, when you look at the standings, the Bears have a shot to host 2 home games in the postseason, which would be huge for them in the first year of Ben Johnson at quarterback, and for the city of Chicago, who have not had a lot to celebrate here over the course of the last God knows how many years, it seems. But when you have a scenario where the Bears, if they win, chances are they'll lock up a 2 seed. And who knows what's going to happen there with LA and Seattle. Obviously, that could be a big thing. Chicago does have to go to San Francisco, which is not going to be an easy game. And then they host the Lions in that final game, where the Lions may be desperate and could have an outside chance of making it into the postseason there when you get to Week 18. But the Packers, we've seen them play on big stages before. Now, Jordan Love, we understand he hasn't really been a guy that in big games, and I understand we could talk about the game there a couple of weeks ago where they beat the Bears, and finally a game where he, I don't want to say rose to the occasion, but when you look at Jordan Love and him being unable to win that big game, I think this constitutes as that because it's on the road, primetime game, Saturday night. It's going to be, who knows what the weather's going to be like in Chicago. We know it's going to be cold. There may be some snow, so you're going to have the elements that could play a factor into this. But to me, we've seen the Packers and Matt LaFleur on the stage before, albeit a different quarterback. It's not Aaron Rodgers, it's Jordan Love, but they've been to the playoffs. We've seen them play in big games. And for the Bears, we have not seen that with Ben Johnson as the coach and obviously with Caleb Williams only in his second year in the league. So I think if you're going to take the Bears seriously, I would think this is going to be a close game, but let's see them pull it out. Let's see the Bears find a way, more so by the arm and legs of Caleb Williams, because the defense, they're very larcenous, where they lead the league in takeaways, and they're going to try to punch that ball out or strip or do whatever they can to get an advantage to whether it's deep in their own territory in order for short fields for the offense of the Bears to capitalize on. But how I look at it is that the Bears, this is going to be a rugged game. This is going to be a rough game. I want to see if Caleb Williams is going to be a guy that's going to answer the bell, especially in this spot, which could propel the Bears to lofty heights and big things here as they close out the regular season, because I think it's important for this franchise to be able to not only host 1 playoff game, but the potential of hosting 2 before having to go on the road to play for a conference championship. And who knows, if somehow, some way, whether it's the Rams, Seahawks, or even the Niners for that matter, if they get picked off in the division round, then guess what? The NFC will have to go through Chicago to a Super Bowl. And you want to have that type of position for a young team. And I understand they may not know their way around the postseason, and obviously, I guess it's a good thing because they're going to just play fast and loose, you would think. But when we get to the playoffs, it's a whole different beast. And players could get tight. Coaching staffs could get tight. Again, will be Ben Johnson's first go-around at this. And who knows? But you'd rather have the 2 games at home. And this one is the one that's staring at you right now. You can't think about San Francisco or Detroit down the road. You know that the Packers right there breathing down your necks, and you can't worry about tiebreakers here because even though the Packers won that first game in Lambeau, but because they have that tie, even if the Bears win on Saturday night, and yes, they will have, in essence, a game and a half lead in the division, but if the Packers end up with the same amount of wins at the end of the year, they're going to win the division. And therefore, they could be the 2 seed when it's all said and done. So that's the danger of, even though they may win this game Saturday night, but the danger of them not being able to have that tiebreaker to where at least they have something to fall back on. If the Packers end up, let's say, 12, or in this case, if they lose, let's say, even on Saturday night, and their record is currently 9-4-1, let's say they end up 9-5-1, but they win the following 2 games, and the Bears will win their 11th game, but the Bears lose to the Niners, and they lose to the Lions in the final game where Green Bay wins their next 2 games, guess what? The Packers are going to win the division. So that is something you have to keep in mind here as you get past Saturday night. Now, if the Bears do win, and they are 11-4, you would think they'll win one of the next 2 games. Because that final game of the season against the Lions, who knows if the Lions are going to need the game. They may be eliminated at that point. But I'm sure for pride's sake and knowing that they may want to stick it to their former offensive coordinator, maybe they show up and add a wrinkle there to the Bears' playoff plans at that time. Obviously a lot that could take place, but they could only worry about this game here. I think the Bears will eke out this game. I think because they just played 2 weeks ago and it was a close game and the Bears were feisty, and I'm sure they may be thinking about that, hey, that's a game that we should have won. Who knows? Maybe they'll come out flying, they'll win a game and beat the Packers. And of course, no Micah Parsons, although they do get Christian Watson back, where there was a lot of questions on whether or not the wide receiver was going to be in play there for Jordan Love, but it looks like he's going to play there Saturday night, and therefore you're going to see him at least there suited up and ready to go, but no Micah Parsons, as you know, and that's going to be a huge loss for them. So I think the Bears will eke out a game there Saturday night, as well as I talked about the Rams there tonight on Thursday Night Football Prime. Amazon Prime, that is. And as far as the games on Sunday, here's where the NFL, although they are king, although they are the impenetrable shield, and a league that by far the best here in the United States, but this is where they get slaughtered. Because you have the game Thursday night where you have to appeal to Amazon Prime, you have the 2 games on Saturday where you have the marquee game there Saturday night. Both of those games are on Fox, by the way. Then you have Sunday. The night game is good, but it was flexed out because you had Cincinnati-Miami was the original Sunday night game, and that got flexed out to 1 o'clock. So now you have New England-Baltimore. Excellent game there as the Ravens try to hang in there in the AFC North. The Monday night game, very good, San Francisco and Indianapolis. But if I go through, I will go through Sunday slate, it is an abomination. You have one game, I think, of note that you'll look at and say, oh, all right, well, that's going to be a battle for division, but it's a very unsexy matchup, that being Tampa Bay at Carolina. And as we all know, last week with both of those teams losing, the Thursday night game where Tampa were up by 14 in the fourth quarter and then they spit the bit, and then Carolina losing in New Orleans. To think about this, they got swept by the Saints this year, Carolina, and they're so up and down. You know, they beat Green Bay, which was a shock, in Green Bay, I might add. And then they go ahead and surprise you by winning these games that you would never have thought about. And then here it is, they lose to the Saints twice, which makes you think whether or not they deserve to win a division or even go to the playoffs for that matter. But when you look at the Sunday schedule, Buffalo at Cleveland, I understand it means something for Buffalo, but I mean, it's the Browns, please. Chargers in Dallas. Dallas' season is done, if you ask me. Chargers, I know they're going to try to see what they could do there and maybe threaten the Broncos in the division, although they're 2 games behind. The aforementioned Bengals at Dolphins, Jets at New Orleans, Minnesota at the Giants, Jacksonville at Denver. Good game, but it's at 4:05, which that should probably be the 4:25 game. The 4:25 game is Pittsburgh at Detroit. I get it, Steelers, Lions, a little bit more intriguing from that matter because the Steelers are trying to fight to stay one game ahead of the Ravens in the AFC North, and the Lions are just trying to survive the NFC and see if they can make it into the postseason. Then you have Vegas playing in Houston. So not a stellar Sunday, but this is what happens. When you have to spread the wealth, when you have to wear yourselves thin for these schedule makers in the NFL with all these mouths to feed. Amazon Prime, we got to feed Fox the 2 games on Saturday. We have the Sunday night game, which we had to flex out one game, but we had to put it in the 1 o'clock. And then the Monday night game is San Fran, Indianapolis. So therefore, you get just scraps on Sunday. And that's what you have in the NFL. I mean, it's sad but true, but what else are you going to do? It's not like yesteryear where you had, all right, you may have the Saturday games where, because the college football season is over, so you had the 2 Saturday games, and then you have the slate on Sunday where you have a few intriguing games, Sunday night game, Monday night, all right, fine, that's it. No, you got Thursday, you got 2 games Saturday, and then, wait till you get to Christmas. 3 games on Christmas, 2 games Saturday, whatever you got left on Sunday night, and then Monday night. I mean, this is why the NFL is oversaturated, and this is why you get a little NFL fatigue this time of year. So that's all I'll say about that. But that is your NFL here in a big giant nutshell. And a couple of quickies real fast. One is Tua Tagovailoa. Now, Tua in the Monday night game against the Steelers was not good at all. Threw for 63 yards in the first 3 quarters. I know cosmetically he threw 2 touchdowns and stats at the end. When you look at it, it wasn't too bad, but it was just putrid in those first 3 quarters. Gets benched yesterday. The announcement came down from the coach, Mike McDaniel, and he's going to start Quinn Ewers, who was the former quarterback at Texas, 6th round pick, who's going to start against the Bengals here on Sunday. And it makes you think whether or not the days of Tua Tagovailoa in Miami are numbered. It's easy to say yes, but remember, he is owed $100 million the next 2 years because he signed that $212 million contract there a couple of years ago. So if you're the Dolphins, I know you just got to be, your skin's got to crawl, and just knowing that this is not the guy, this is not your quarterback, and he's probably going to be there next year because if you cut him, you're going to take some serious cap hits when it comes to dead cap space. Even if you trade him, what team is going to want to pick him up? There's not any team that's going to want to even acquire the likes of Tua Tagovailoa because he's a guy that, yes, comes from a winning program in college and is a guy that's a winner, but with the concussion and injury history that he has, does not have a big arm. You got to tailor the offense for him where it's going to be short passing games, bubble screens, a lot of crosses. It's just, unfortunately, he's not a guy that is going to stand in that pocket, take a beating, or is elusive enough to get out of the pocket and make plays. He's not fast. He's diminutive. I mean, it's just a recipe for disaster pretty much for any team unless you have an offensive line that's built like the Great Wall of China and you really have skill position players, which they do, the Jalen Waddles and the Devon Achans and the Tyreek Hill, who we all know season-ending knee injury, but it has to literally be the perfect scenario for Tua Tagovailoa to thrive. And he has thrived in those settings in years past. But when he gets to cold weather, forget about it. And when he gets away from that building, forget about it. So he's going to be on the team. Unless they're going to be willing to eat all that cap money, and it's going to be enormous. I think next year he's $54 million toward your cap. Need I say more? So that's what you have there with Tua. And then the other thing is with Patrick Mahomes, I tell you, this guy, he's got to be from another planet because he had suffered the ACL injury Sunday against the Chargers, and then I believe got the surgery the next day. Forget about swelling, forget about anything. I think it was reported he got the surgery the next day or probably at the earliest Tuesday morning. And I believe he got it done in Texas, if I'm not mistaken. Let me double check that. I don't want to give away any, not that I'm giving it away, but I don't want to have any erroneous information that I'm putting forth out here when it comes to Mahomes, his health, and everything that has transpired here over the last few days. So Mahomes didn't even bother with the whole, let the swelling go down, let me give it a few days, let me think about it, let me this, let me that. No, he's like, let's get this sucker over and out, done with, because I want to start rehab literally the second after I get the surgery, which, as we all know, is next to impossible. But this is the passion. This is the desire. This is the fire. He's not going to go as far as saying he's Kobe Bryant when it comes to work ethic and things of that nature. I'm sure listen, that's not to say he's sitting at home not doing anything, but this is not the article that I was looking for. But anyway, he already had the surgery. He's looking forward to rehab. Maybe not psychologically, but mentally he's like, let's go. I want to be back for week 1. And he's pretty much stated that, which makes you think, watch out, because if the Chiefs are going to retool here and reload, then number 15 is going to be slinging it and probably with a brand new knee. Well, not probably, with a brand new knee. And he's going to be ready to wreak havoc and get back to that lofty perch of being at the top of the AFC, championship games in his building, and then getting back to a Super Bowl. So I have to keep that in mind as he starts his rehab, probably as I speak. All right, so I'll keep it with the football as I get into college, because tomorrow night you have the college football playoff begin in Norman, Oklahoma, where Alabama will try to exact revenge from their loss in Tuscaloosa to the Sooners. So when it comes to the playoff storylines, I guess I'll start there. Will Alabama, Ty Simpson, their not robust running game, will they be able to penetrate that defense, make plays, and come out victorious against Oklahoma? And I understand John Mateer, their quarterback, he's going to also have to make some plays. He hasn't really been that impressive throughout the course of the season. So to me, I think that this is going to be more on Oklahoma's defense to win this game than it will be their offense and them slowing down Ty Simpson, the Alabama offense, etc. I think Alabama's going to find a way to win this game, because I'm sure there are a lot of people and whispers about, does Alabama deserve to be in the college football playoff considering they had 3 losses? Notre Dame had the 2 losses. We get that, and we don't have to talk about that as we did a couple of weeks back, or 10 days ago. But for Alabama and Kalen DeBoer, I think this is a big game for him. Now, if he loses the 28-24 game and then we're in it to the very end, do you kill him for that? I understand it's Alabama. It's championships or nothing. And this would be a bit of a stain on DeBoer, not in my eyes, but for the university and I'm sure the students, etc. But it's one of those things where Alabama, I feel that they're going to find a way to win this game because of what happened in their building just a little over a month ago. I think Alabama's going to win a close one. I could see this being, just like I said, a 28-24, somewhere along those lines. I don't know if Mateer, who can run and be that dual threat, but he's not a big-time quarterback. I mean, let's face it. Ty Simpson, he's a guy that obviously has played well this year. And in that game against Oklahoma, obviously not one of his finest performances, but you have to think, looking at the film that day and knowing that he could probably find some weaknesses in that very stout Oklahoma defense. But how I look at it is I think they're going to find a way to win this game because I don't trust Mateer. I trust Simpson more than I trust Mateer. So I will take Alabama to win that game. To me, that's the storyline of that game. I'm not going to talk about the teams that had the byes just yet because you could say, JAYREELZ, what do you feel about Indiana? Can Ohio State repeat? Obviously, they have the bye. We'll talk about their prospects next Thursday on that podcast, which will obviously be, as a matter of fact, that's Christmas Day. Will I have a podcast that day? I may not even have a podcast that day. So just keep that in mind. But probably during the live stream on Wednesday, which I will have. If you are unaware, I host a Wednesday live stream on my YouTube channel at JAYREELZ. So maybe I'll do a little preview during the live stream. So that's game number one. Game number two on Saturday, high noon, Miami going to Texas A&M to play the Aggies. And to me, how I look at this game, it's twofold. Which Carson Beck is going to show up? Is he the guy that had success at Georgia and success early on this year at Miami to maybe have that experience on his side to upset a Texas A&M team? Or will it be a situation where he is not going to be a guy that's going to deliver. And Texas A&M, as we all know, with their quarterback Marcel Reed, who's had a very good year, but also the A&M defense is formidable. And how he's going to be able to find holes and get matchups that are going to favor Miami. And I can't trust that. Another factor you got to throw in there is the head coach, Mario Cristobal. He's a guy that I can't trust in a big spot. Think about this. When they lost to SMU, he was talking about the things that he screwed up in that game, and that was against an inferior opponent. Now he's in the playoff going up against A&M, and A&M, who's had a big year, granted that they lost their last game against Texas, but were undefeated over the first 11 weeks of the year before they lost to the Longhorns. And I would think that for them, that was a plus, because if you went into this postseason undefeated, the thought in the back of your mind of getting picked off could be there, especially if you're trailing, let's say at the midway point or even the third quarter where Miami's up, let's say 20-10, and then now you're playing tight. You're thinking that you could just flick the switch, and that's not going to happen. Whereas they got their comeuppance, losing to their in-state rival, and it was a thing where it's like, all right, we got that out of our system. Now it's away we go. Let's just go ahead and try to get Carson Beck off his game and send the Hurricanes packing back to Miami and Coral Gables. I think A&M, listen, they've had a huge year. And no shade on the Hurricanes, but I think A&M, I think it'll be close maybe till the half, but I can see A&M pulling away somewhere like 31-17. Now, they're going to have to force turnovers, Miami, because if they get short fields and they're able to capitalize in that regard, I could see that. But I just think A&M is just too strong defensively. Marcel Reed, like I mentioned, had a big year. I could see them, whether they come out of the gate flying or they pull away second half to where they win comfortably from that vantage point. Like I said, 31-17, maybe even 34-21. I could see that happening. So therefore, I like A&M in that game. And this storyline, I'm just going to combine. I mean, really, forget about them hanging for a half. Could James Madison and Tulane hang for a quarter? Or maybe even into the second quarter? Now, if it is, let's say, 9 minutes to go second quarter, and if they are within 2 scores, that's almost a moral victory. So let's say it's 17-6. So 2 scores. There you go. 17-6, and it's 9 minutes left to go in the second quarter, but James Madison and or Tulane have the ball to where they can at least make it to 1 score. To me, I would sign for that right now because both of these games have 34-3 at the half. So that's what I'm going to look at here. Can they be in the game in the second quarter? Now, if it's 14-0 first quarter, all right, hey, what are you going to do? So maybe, who knows? If it's within 2 scores where James Madison or Tulane make it 14-3 early second, all right, that's still within 2 scores. And 14-0, I understand it is 2 scores. But if it's 14-0, you know they still have no shot to come back and win. Where it's 14-3, hey, they kick off the ball, maybe they make a stop, 3 and out, or what have you. Maybe, just maybe. Can we dream a little bit? I can't see it happening here. If it wasn't for the way the ACC crumbled, where Duke wins the ACC and Miami gets the last bid, where Notre Dame, if they would have got in, one of these 2 teams would have been out. So therefore, it's a scenario where if you had one of the teams, all right, you live with that, but you have both of them. And this is where college football is going to get destroyed on Saturday because you have the 2 NFL games. Now, mind you, they start at 5 and then 8:30, where the college football and the schedule is this. You know, Alabama, Oklahoma tomorrow. There will kick us off tomorrow night. Saturday at noon, I mentioned Miami and Texas A&M. At 3:30 is Tulane, Ole Miss. And then at 7:30 is James Madison, Oregon. So that's going to start where the Philly-Washington game, the first game, is just about going to end. So maybe, depending on how that game's going, they may be off it and may want to see the first couple of drives of James Madison, Oregon. But they're going to get destroyed by the NFL rating. I mean, that's all there is to it. And that's why they put those 2 games in those time slots. I mean, even if you put Alabama primetime Saturday night, they're going to get destroyed by Green Bay, Chicago. I mean, come on. So they positioned these games correctly because there was no way that they were going to have James Madison and Tulane Friday night or Saturday early to where the NFL would just literally stomp on the Miami Texas A&M game if that was a 3:30 game, and then Alabama was the primetime game there Saturday night. And that's what you have. I mean, there isn't anything else to say about the storylines of this weekend. Will Alabama get revenge? Can Miami hang in there and upset A&M? And which Carson Beck will show up? And will James Madison and Tulane be in the game in the second quarter? That's it. Forget about second half. Could you imagine? It's 17-14 Ole Miss. I mean, there's no way. No way in hell. And there's your college football. I wish I could add more to that, but there really isn't anything else to that. I mean, I could talk about players leaving to go to the NFL, the Jeremiah Loves of the world, etc. But, yeah. So that's what you got. Now, let me get on my high tops because the association is calling, as we'll see what's happening in the NBA. And really the only thing to discuss this week, and I'll go over the schedule in a second, because the standings and all that, it's pretty much the same. There isn't anything to talk about. You've had just a handful of games here. You have a big slate tonight in the NBA, which, of course, I will unpack in a little bit. But as far as teams, positioning, things of that nature, I mean, think about this. Oklahoma City, who played on Saturday and lost to the Spurs, they haven't played since. So why? And there's nothing to get to with the Thunder. And the same can be said for the Lakers, the Nuggets, etc. That's why tonight you have a slew of games, which I'll touch on. But the NBA Cup you had there on Tuesday night, Knicks and Spurs. And you know how I feel about the NBA Cup, people. Who knows? Maybe in 15, 20 years when it has some traction and it gains a little bit more momentum, will I get into it to the point where, must-see TV? No. But at least I could say, all right, well, now I'm starting to feel this a little bit more than I did in the first 2 or 3 years of this in-season tournament. And it was a close game. The Spurs were able to stretch their lead to 11 there late in the third quarter. They were actually up, I believe it was 92-81 before the Knicks went on their run. They went on a 10-0 run, and actually it was, when it was all said and done, it was a 13-3 run where they were up 195, and they didn't look back from there. And when you have OG Anunoby making 5 of 10 from 3, scoring 28 points, Jalen Brunson, who shot terribly in the game, was 11 for 27, but scored 25 and was your game MVP. Mitchell Robinson grabbing 10 offensive rebounds, got 15 rebounds total in the game. And what more can you say? The Knicks thwart the young Spurs of Victor Wembanyama, who had 18 points in the game. I only think he had about 26 minutes in the game. And remember, he's coming off of that injury where he played 21 minutes against the Thunder and then had the unfortunate, just sad story about his grandmother passing away. So he was playing with a heavy heart. But the Knicks win the NBA Cup, and I know you saw the confetti and the cup and everybody celebrating there. And the fans that I know, listen, were they ecstatic as if they were on light posts and were storming the streets of Manhattan after they beat the Celtics in the second round of the postseason? No, nothing to that degree, but there was a celebratory mood with the Knicks fan, talking about how, all right, we got this one, now let's get the real championship, and that's good, so it's been tempered a little bit. And the Knicks have pretty much done the same thing, twofold. One, knowing that a lot of the players, including Brunson, saying that, this is a stepping stone for what lies ahead, hopefully as we get deeper into the year and into the postseason. Mike Brown, was the coach of the team, was looking at this 3-game stretch of the quarterfinals, semifinal, and finals as some pressure that we could learn from, where we're able to navigate and try to get to a cup final, and some of the challenges that we had to withstand getting to this point and then winning the whole thing. All right, to me, it's a little bit of a stretch, if you ask me, because let's face it, if the Knicks are in a conference semi, or let's say even a conference final, and they're down 3-2, having to go on the road, are they going to go into the memory bank to think, hey guys, remember in December when we were in Vegas and we were trying to navigate our way through the semifinals and even the cup final. Let's go back to that. That's a bit of a stretch in my eyes because that has very little meaning to a series in May or even June for that matter. But all right, have at it the way you want. But I will say they've downplayed it for the most part. Now, of course, they have the hats and the T-shirts, but here's the other thing. That's number one. But number two, and the bigger thing, that even though the players, stepping stone, they're saying all the right things, it's not as if they're parading the cup or doing anything like that, or thank God there's going to be no parade. But they've chosen not to raise a banner to the Madison Square Garden rafters. And to that, I applaud them. Because let's face it, I get it that the Knicks fans been starving for any type of celebratory championship, whether in season or even better and bigger than an NBA championship. But they feel like, no, we don't want it. We want the real thing. And you know what? I got to give them credit. Because the Lakers, and I don't know if that was a mandate by Adam Silver or the league to say, hey guys, you got to put up a banner. And I know the Bucks also put up an in-season cup banner as well. And think about this. Both of those aforementioned franchises have won NBA championships here in this decade. Lakers in 2020 and the following year, the Bucks. And they have the in-season cup champion banner in their rafters. And the Knicks, who haven't won anything for 5 decades, said, no, we don't want that. And I love that. I don't like it. I love it. Because it's all about the brass ring. The big banner, the one that they're going to want to pull to that famed ceiling on that third Tuesday in October when they open up the season. That's what it's all about, not some in-season championship. Because let's face it, when the Lakers did that, and I get it, maybe because it was the first one, whatever, but as I've said before, and I'll say it again, Kobe Bryant was spinning in his grave. Spinning. Because he was a guy that was all about championships. And if he was alive to see that, I'm sure he would have had a thing or two to say about, wait a minute, was raising a banner for this? Guys, are we serious? So, but for the Knicks, I give them kudos for them not wanting to do it. And hopefully there isn't a groundswell, whether it's by the fans or the media. They're going to say, hey, there should be a banner up there. The Lakers and Bucks have it. Why not you guys? And then here it is sometime in February. They're raising a blue and orange cup banner to the ceiling. And I get it that Spike was there and the fan base was ecstatic and so on and so forth, was there in Vegas. I mean, if it was the Celtics that did that, my team, I mean, it would just be another game for me. Because to me, it's all about titles, not cup champion titles. I mean, let me get off that. So that's what you have there. Those are my 2 cents when it comes to the Knicks and them winning the cup and obviously not going to raise a banner and kind of downplaying it, celebrating it, but downplaying it to the point where it's not the end-all be-all. So I got to give them kudos for that. Now, as far as the schedule here for now until Sunday, here are your games. Knicks going to Indiana for the first time since the conference final. Miami at Brooklyn, Clippers in OKC, Washington and San Antonio, Toronto, Milwaukee, Atlanta, Charlotte, Houston, New Orleans, Detroit, Dallas, Orlando, Denver, not bad, Golden State, Phoenix, okay, Lakers in Utah, Sacramento, Portland. Tomorrow, Miami at Boston, Philly at the Knicks, that's on Prime. The other Prime game at 9:30 is Oklahoma City, Minnesota, San Antonio, Atlanta, Chicago, Cleveland. Saturday, Houston at Denver, good game. Followed by Dallas at Philly, Boston, Toronto, Indy, New Orleans, Charlotte, Detroit, Washington, Memphis, Phoenix, Golden State, Orlando, Utah, Portland, Sacramento, LA at LA, that being at the Intuit Dome. So it's Lakers at Clippers. Sunday, Chicago at Atlanta, Toronto at Brooklyn, Miami at New York. So Miami and Brooklyn tonight, Boston Friday, and then they play the Knicks on Sunday. San Antonio, Washington, Milwaukee, Minnesota, Houston, Sacramento. So that is your NBA over the course of the next few days heading into the Christmas week. And I don't think there's any other news and notes in the NBA. Let me just double check. No, nothing there to speak of. Now as I turn my attention to the ice and I lace up the skates to see what's happening in the NHL, And surprisingly, there's a bit of a developing story with a team that I thought, and bad job on my part, when I was looking at the over-unders, and maybe I could go through the over-unders. Maybe I'll save that for Monday with the NFL as well as the NBA too. But there's a team out west that I've talked about a little bit recently. Haven't really unpacked it. Talked about them a little bit on Monday, but now I have to go in a little bit further. Because this team that started 0-6, they had not won a regulation game, or had not won a game, period. They started, as a matter of fact, they were, I believe, 0-6 with an overtime loss. Or 0-5-1, I should say. And they were the last team to win a game. But since then, this team has gone 17-9-2. And right now, 5 points behind the Vegas Golden Knights and the Anaheim Ducks. They're both tied for first place in the Pacific Division. And if you're wondering which team I'm talking about, as they're in the Pacific waters out there with Anaheim, with Edmonton, with LA, that are pretty much right in front of them, are the San Jose Sharks. I bring up the Sharks because they've won 3 in a row. Monday, I talked about that crazy win in Pittsburgh when they were down 5-1 in the third period. They came back to tie and win in overtime. They have a player that is third in the league in points, who as early as a couple of weeks ago, maybe even 10 days ago, was second in the league in points, and that was Macklin Celebrini, the number 1 overall pick of last year. And he had that beautiful goal against Calgary a couple nights ago where he did a little spin-around in front of the net. Check it out on YouTube. They also have a couple of other young players that are very good. You have Will Smith, who just went on IR, but he was your number 2 overall. Oh, I take that back. I think it was number 4 overall in 2023. Michael Misa, who right now got sent to the minors, but there's a lot expected from him. He was the number 2 pick overall this year, right after Matthew Schaefer of the Islanders. And they also have a nice mix of veteran presence. Tyler Toffoli, who just scored his 300th goal, has been around a million teams. So they have a decent mix there. I'm not in love with their goaltending, though. The goaltending, they definitely need a goaltender. Probably have to shore up their defense in the process. And they're pretty much using a 2-pronged attack at goalie, where I know that, and you know me with names, people, so I'll try to pronounce them as best as possible. Yaroslav Askarov, he's actually been in net more games than Alex Nedeljkovic. I believe I pronounced that properly. So San Jose, surprise team there in the West, swimming in those waters, looking to see if they could take a bite out of those teams in that division. And why not? I mean, this is a team that, with Celebrini having a big year, dare I even say, maybe even in the running for a Hart Trophy for MVP. I mean, you would have to think it's Nathan McKinnon, maybe Connor McDavid, and Celebrini right now. So, give it up. They've played well here. Like I told you, they've been 17-9-2. They've won 3 in a row. And they've really turned their fortunes around. Now, they're a young team led by a head coach that nobody would be able to pick out of a lineup. That being Ryan Warsofsky. And that's a guy I've never even known. I couldn't even tell you if he fell on me. But with the youth that they have in the team, that's a team that's going to be growing and building for years to come. And obviously, they got to add a few more veterans there to their team. You know, Toffoli's a guy. You have Nick Leddy on defense, old Islander who's bounced around Chicago, etc. So they have guys on the team that I think are capable of showing the young guys what it's like to play in this league. And Celebrini right now, he leads the team in points, assists, goals, etc. I believe he's, 18, 33, 51 points right now. So, listen, they can continue to trend up. I like what they've been doing. So, hats off to the San Jose Sharks. To me, that has been the big story here. In an NHL season, let's face it, that obviously is long. We're trying to find storylines or besides injuries where we could kind of at least wrap our arms around. And right now, it's San Jose. So we shall see. Because other than that, everything is status quo. I know Hurricanes have played well. Carolina gained a little separation from the Devils and even the Islanders for that matter. Devils have been weird. They were first place for most of the early part of the year. Then were in second place and now dropped as far as seventh, and now they're fifth in the division. Islanders are 5 points back, and they played well. They played over their heads this year. And we know what's happening there in the Atlantic with the Red Wings, Bruins, Lightning, even the Panthers, Canadians. They're all mashed together. They're separated by 3 points. But for the rest of the sport, Colorado's still in to continue to wreak havoc. The Wild, after that trade with Vancouver, Quinn Hughes, they played well. Now, mind you, they're still 10 points behind the Colorado Avalanche, but the NHL is what it is. It's going to be in the wilderness a little bit. I know you're going to have in 2 weeks, really 2 weeks from tomorrow, you'll have the Winter Classic, which is going to be in all places, Lone Depot Park, home of the Miami Marlins, where the Rangers will invade South Florida. And who knows, they're probably going to have, hopefully for them, they'll have like a 65-degree day. Because I wonder, could they have the roof open on a 75-degree day and it affect the ice? Because part of having an outdoor game is having the sun come in. How do you have an outdoor game if the roof is closed? But if it's 75, 78 degrees, it's a relatively, and for Florida that time of year, I mean, it's the perfect weather, 78 degrees. But people are going to be going to the game in shorts. Well, that we'll have to wait and see. I'm going to be fascinated to see how that turns out. And then Tampa's going to have their outdoor game next month, just to throw that on the radar. I forgot who they're playing. Is it Nashville? Off the top of my head, I don't know. That's in February, and they're going to play that at Raymond James Stadium. So, and Tampa could be a little bit cooler than South Florida, so that we'll wait and see. But that is your NHL pretty much in a big nutshell. Obviously, with the Sharks leading the way here, and I had to give them their shine considering looking at what they've done and Celebrini and how he's played that game against the Penguins the other day. His spinorama goal there, I believe it was Tuesday night. So check that out. And as far as the schedule goes, because you know I always miss these schedules here, especially for the weekend. Edmonton at Boston, which I mentioned last week. Do you know that Edmonton will complete their whole East Coast or trip through the Eastern Conference here before Christmas? So the remainder of the way, they do not have to play any of the teams in the Northeast, the teams in the Southeast, or even in the Midwest for that matter. That being Detroit, Columbus, missing another one. Well, Toronto, obviously they're in Canada. But yeah, this is the final leg of that trip. So they play the Bruins tonight in Boston, Chicago, Montreal, Pittsburgh, Ottawa, LA, Tampa, where the Kings got shut out last night by the Panthers. Oh, I'm sorry, they lost them 3-2. They were shut out at one point. They were down 3-0, I believe, in the game. Let me just double check that so I don't sound foolish. No, LA was up 1-0. I was looking at the wrong score, so my apologies there. Hand raised high in the air if you're watching on YouTube or Spotify for that matter. But they did lose to the Panthers. Then you have Toronto, Washington, Minnesota, Columbus, Philly, Buffalo, New York, St. Louis, Seattle, Calgary, Dallas, San Jose. Tomorrow, Carolina at Florida, Vancouver at New York, Winnipeg, Colorado, Jersey, Utah, Dallas, Anaheim. Then you have Philly at New York on Saturday, Detroit, Washington. That's a home and home, by the way. Then they'll go to Detroit there on Sunday afternoon. Both of those games are in the afternoon. Chicago, Ottawa, Edmonton, Minnesota, New York, Buffalo, St. Louis, Florida, Vancouver, Boston, Pittsburgh, Montreal, Carolina, Tampa Bay, Toronto, Nashville, Vegas, Calgary. Always Saturday's a big schedule. And then Sunday, Washington, Detroit, Colorado, Minnesota, Ottawa, Boston, Buffalo, New Jersey, Montreal, Pittsburgh, New York, Nashville, Toronto, Dallas, Winnipeg, Utah, Vegas at Edmonton. All right, let me get in the batter's box. A little baseball. There's only one thing of note, and I even hate to unpack this. So the New York Mets have signed another reliever. All right, you think, oh, Pete Fairbanks? Did they get him? No, not him. Was it Another guy that maybe wasn't on our radar, no. Well, he may not have been on your radar, but is it a surprise that David Stearns has signed Luke Weaver, former Yankee reliever, on top of the other former Yankee reliever that he signed a couple weeks back and a one Devin Williams, on top of the former Yankee reliever that they signed last year, Clay Holmes, and converted him to a starter, besides the right fielder that they took from Yankee Stadium to Citi Field and a one Juan Soto, another former Yankee, and Frankie Montas, who I understand pitched for the Reds and Brewers in between, but did pitch in pinstripes once upon a time. I mean, Cody Bellinger, just sign him. This affinity that David Stearns has had for the former Yankees it's really mind-boggling. And why, I do not know. Is it a thing where Steve Cohen, for whatever the reason, has an inner George Steinbrenner about him to where he has an affinity for ex-Yankees similar to George with the 86 Mets, signing Doc and Darryl and David Cohn? I mean, at this point, it's comical. That the Yankee fans are just laughing at us. You got our sloppy seconds. You're getting our leftovers. And all you can do as a Met fan is just throw your hands up in the air and say, I know. It's really embarrassing when you think about it. And listen, I don't know what you're going to get out of these guys. I wouldn't be surprised if Bellinger is going to end up being a Met, considering the theme here and the pattern that we've seen here with the Met GM. And listen, Luke Weaver 2 years ago, when they got him from St. Louis, was lights out. Down the stretch of the season, even into the postseason, you're thinking to yourself, wait a minute, this guy's now Mariano reincarnate. Where last year, he started out with a bang. I believe like the first 6 weeks of the season, he didn't even give up a run, was unhittable, and you're like, geez, what is this guy eating and drinking? Then he suffered an injury. Well, before the injury, then he started to give up some runs, was human all of a sudden, and then he had an injury mid-season. I forgot what it was. I don't know if it was a strained calf. But then when he came back, it was not the same pitcher. Not that he was getting lit up, but he certainly wasn't the same pitcher. And then all of a sudden, the bloom was off that rose to where Luke Weaver was literally a mere mortal. Where now he's going to be in a Met uniform, and who knows what role is he going to be the eighth inning guy? Is he going to be, who knows? But in thinking about this whole Yankees East, where these Met players now all of a sudden, or these Yankee players are now going over the Triborough Bridge, it had me thinking deeper about Devin Williams and that signing. I mean, here's a guy that literally 14 months ago was arguably the best reliever in baseball, was coming off of a killer year into the postseason against the Mets. We know about the Pete Alonso home run, etc. And ever since that point, the guy hasn't been the same. Look at his numbers last year. And I don't want to hear about his second half. And I don't want to hear about it. Look at the end of the back of the baseball card. And I understand it's not how you start, it's how you finish. Well, how did he finish? They were up 2-1 in the top of the seventh against the Blue Jays in Game 4 in an elimination game. And albeit Jazz Chisholm, I know the era. But for him to give it the hit to Nathan Lucas, which went from 2-1 to 4-1 and iced that game in the series, yes, that was Devin Williams' gift to hit. So I want to hear about all these sabermetrics about how he pitched in the second half and his whiff rates. And no. So now you have a situation where he signs with the Mets. How do you think that's going to end up? I don't even have to look into a crystal ball. And listen, people are going to say, well, JAYREELZ, how the hell do you know? What if this guy goes out and saves 35, 40 games and makes you look stupid? Well, I hope he does. I hope he makes me look like, to be blunt, a horse's ass. But considering that the Met franchise may have been the beginning of the end for him as far as being that dominant reliever, lights out, the airbender nobody can hit, where now you got to wonder what is between his ears, and even bigger, what is in his chest. And I'm not knocking him. I'm not trying to say that he's soft. I'm not knocking him to say that, oh, he's not built for New York, whatever. Obviously did not have a good first year, and who knows, maybe there was a little bit of that somewhere inside of him. But now he's going to have to get rid of that because he's going from the frying pan into the fire. And to think that this Met organization, because of the relationship that Stearns had with Williams in Milwaukee, is banking on him to get back to that form prior to the Pete Alonso home run. How do you think that's going to turn out? We shall see come April next year. But boy, you talk about the ultimate dice roll. I do not feel good about it. No other baseball notes. I know he had like some minor signings. I talked about Robert Suarez. Adolis Garcia, the former Texas Ranger, signs with the Phillies. 1 year, $10 million. You haven't had a lot of activity. Now let me see. If I go check out their page real quick before I go to my last thing. Anything Major League Baseball? Oh, Nationals. Oh, yeah, with their new GM. The guy's 31 years of age. I mean, think about that. Ani Kalambi. Don't know who the guy is. Brad Keller with the Phillies, 2 years. Shane McClanahan avoiding arbitration. Yeah, I mean, you don't really have much with the baseball. I know the Angels boosted. You're right. Jordan Romano and Drew Pomeranz. I mean, am I going to go? Listen, if you're the Angels, anything to do to try to get pitching in there, because we know they haven't had pitching in forever. But nothing much else happening in baseball. And then lastly, as I take myself into the ring and put on the boxing gloves, just a farewell, a salute to Terence Bud Crawford, who retired 42-0, 31 knockouts. The last fight he had was against Canelo Alvarez, a unanimous decision. We know about the career he had beating Errol Spence 2 years ago. And listen, we could talk about the eras and how there aren't that many great fighters out now and so on and so forth. But if you end up 42-0 and have 31 knockouts, obviously you're going to go into the Boxing Hall of Fame and roller skates for those who care. And at 38 years of age, he said he had nothing else left to prove. The guy won 3 belts or 3 titles in 3 different weight classes. The guy has been just an enormous part of the sport, despite the fact that the sport, in my eyes, is not a shell. It is literally a thin layer of its old self. And whatever the next chapter in life that you have, my man, kudos to you. Thanks for all that you brought. And listen, not that I watched a lot of his fights. As you know, boxing has really been not in my wheelhouse as it once was. And I did see the Canelo Alvarez fight, and Alvarez, obviously, the warrior that he is, but even Bud Crawford, that was too much of a match for him. So kudos to Terence Crawford. All the best to you in your next. And hopefully you don't have to come back to fight the guys like Jake Paul, who I know is going to fight tomorrow. Do I really even need to get into that against Anthony Joshua? You know that's going to be scripted, because if he's going to fight Joshua, Joshua's probably going to eat him alive. But you know there's going to be stuff in the contract where he's not going to do that or embarrass Jake Paul, whatever, which is a joke. And I understand it's just for entertainment purposes. It's not a literal official boxing match and we're going for a belt or a championship. But that right there just tells you how far or how low boxing has come when Jake Paul is headlining fights on Netflix, and you're going to have to take those fights seriously, because let's face it, I don't. That'll do it, my good people. Another episode just found the books. As always, thank you so much for stopping by, carving out precious time out of your day to listen to what it is I have to say about what goes on in the toy department of Life Code Sports. And if you haven't done so, please subscribe to the channel on YouTube at JAYREELZ. Also, Apple, Spotify, wherever you listen to podcasts, please subscribe there. Leave a review. Throw me a few stars as well. The website, jayreels.com. And if sports is what you love, if you're a casual sports fan, a diehard, or anywhere in between, please subscribe. I would sincerely appreciate it. And send it to your family, friends, foes, frenemies. Take screenshots. Send it to me on my social media accounts, whether it's on Instagram, TikTok, Facebook, the JAYREELZ Podcast. On Twitter, JAYREELZ1, just the number. I'm also on Twitch, JAYREELZ1, just the number. So just keep that in mind when it comes to the live streams every Wednesday, high noon. And I'm going to expand that when we get to the new year. So you have to go to the channel, as I'll keep you abreast of what's happening there. And if you have any questions, comments, or suggestions, you could go to those aforementioned social media accounts or go to the JAYREELZ Podcast at gmail.com. I'll be more than happy to follow up with you guys and gals, because whether you do or do not know, this is what I love to do, people. It's in the blood, it's in the DNA since birth. Doing what it is that I love. Going on 2 years doing this without earning a thin dime. That's got to change, and that's why I need your help, people. So if you could please go ahead, do your due diligence to subscribe, follow, whatever. I would sincerely appreciate it, because as long as I sit in front of this microphone and camera, I promise I'll deliver nothing but passion, fire, energy, fury with my thoughts, opinions, critiques, praise, analysis, feelings on anything and everything that happens on the world of the diamond, ice, gridiron, hardwood, golf course, racetrack, tennis court, boxing ring, octagon, you name it. From my lips to your ears, from my heart to your soul, from where I am to wherever you are, the JAYREELZ podcast always comes correct, direct, and in full effect. From the South Bronx, the South Beach, the South Central, the South Pacific, and all points beyond. Peace, love, and God bless everybody. And until next time on the JAYREELZ podcast, on the flip, baby.